Some people are handed a blueprint for life. Immigrant hustle, small town ceilings, expectations set in stone. But these two, they chose to rewrite it. Building experience in real estate and in life. Andrade and Antonio Henriques are here to share the stories that prove what's possible. Real stories, real strategies, real impact. This is Rewrite the Legacy.
All right, guys, welcome to Rewrite the Legacy, episode number 3. My name is Andrade, along with Antonio, and we're so happy to have you guys checking in here for episode number 3, which is a very, very special episode because we have a great guest coming on here today. So if you've been listening to Rewrite the Legacy, you know this show is about bringing the stories of people who've built incredible careers, but more importantly, who have rewritten their own story along the way. That's the foundation of this podcast. Today's guest is one of those voices. He's voiced ads for brands like Discover Card, Breitling, VRBO, Heineken, BetMGM, The Economist, and he's also the voice of Webster Hall, one of New York's most iconic venues for 8 years straight. Beyond that, he's a respected DJ, MC, voiceover artist, and mentor, and someone who's been a leader in both the live event space and in the world of production. It's a full circle moment, guys. We're so excited to have him on the show. Please welcome Tee Neto to Rewrite the Legacy podcast.
That was amazing.
Woo!
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Clapping soundtrack.
A lot going on, but I'm so excited to have you on.
I didn't realize how much I did.
Man,
That's amazing.
Legend in so many ways. We're so happy to have you on here. And
it's my pleasure.
Full circle, man. You taught me a lot along the way. And Tony and I have been talking about this episode from the beginning. I'm like, listen, we got to get my mentor on here, Tony T, who told me a lot about this. So I'm excited to have you on, Tony. And obviously, you didn't come too far away today. You know, we got the studio, a good location. But why don't we start off the podcast? Just again, what we want to do is really digest your story, right? Like, obviously, your name is Tee Neto, but we really want to know about Antonio because we have another Antonio, but that Antonio. Yeah. So just why don't you just dive in really quick about who you are, where you're from, and kind of.
So like, how many episodes is this podcast? Cut me off if I talk too much, but yeah. Antonio is not that Antonio. This Antonio is actually I was a first generation, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, as I think is a requirement for most or all of Portuguese people, especially from my generation. Yeah. And that was years ago. That's where I started out. My parents were immigrants from Portugal, and they came here, as all immigrants did, to look for a better life, make a life, and presumably hand that life over to me or give me an opportunity at a better life than they had. Not that they weren't doing okay, but the opportunity that this country was affording to immigrants was a dream, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, I guess I ended up living that dream because I, as an offspring, first generation, which presents certain challenges, which I'm sure you can attest to, or we'll get into. But that's where I was born and raised, and I was there till I was a teenager.
Yeah, in Newark. And how was it growing up? Like, what was some of the lifestyle? We always like to see, like, paint a picture. Like, how were your parents growing up? Were they entrepreneurial? Were they workers? Yeah. Like, how were they growing up?
That is a great question because, depending on the generation, depending on the skills that you're afforded, my parents were, they're blue collar. My dad was in construction. Yeah. He was a welder by trade, and my mom was a seamstress. Wow. So she worked in, a couple of factories that still existed, not anymore, a few blocks away from home. And she would walk to work, to and from, Wow. And there's a story before that even, when I was probably way too young. But I remember when we lived in Newark and my folks had the opportunity to buy that first tiny home, little two-family. My mom was going to work every day. I think she left the house at like 7 a.m. or whatever it was. She'd be home around, 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Same story.
Come home, make dinner. My dad pull up. I assume he left around 6 a.m. I have no idea. He would get in around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we'd have dinner together. So
that was the routine.
That was the routine, yeah. And they worked their faces off. So they weren't the entrepreneurial type. And my mom had brothers here. I have aunts and uncles and cousins here. None of us really had that leaning, so to speak. So everybody was pretty much, blue collar, for lack of a better term. So I personally wasn't exposed to, my uncle owns a store, and I'm going to go work at the store, and that presents you with a different perspective. I didn't have that. And I don't mean that like I had it good. I just wasn't exposed to that.
And as far as like education and stuff, your parents like very push for you to go to college, and
I think it was expected. That's, I think, one of the reasons they had me here. I was born and raised here in the U.S., which is an advantage, so to speak, right? Because I'm not coming from a foreign country, but it presents its own challenges.
For sure.
I was on what you would call a more traditional path. School, go to a decent high school, which my folks worked really hard to get me into a decent, or not get me into, but allow for that opportunity
for sure
to go to a private high school, and then college. And I did go to college. I graduated 4 years every day, or almost every day. And that's the traditional path,
for sure.
And I was blessed to have those opportunities. My folks were lucky. I was a pretty decent kid.
That's awesome. I agree. And again, growing up day to day, like you said, the routine, I mean, that's instilled in you, right? You're seeing your mom going. That's something I love about Portuguese culture, not biased, but the work ethic is from day one. You see your parents busting their chops every single day. They're gone all day. They're working hard. And that transfers to every skill set you do in the world, whether it's school, your personal job. I mean, one of the first, like, a little bit, I don't want to cut you up, but as far as like your career, right? Because you did a lot of schooling, you went to high school, etc. What were some of your jobs? I know we talked about you doing the airline thing a while back, but like, what were some of the things, like now let's say we're in the high school ages, like what were some of the things you were doing at the time?
Well, my first job was in a little video store.
Yeah,
I was like
in Newark.
No, I was in Union by the time I graduated to Union.
Okay.
So first job was a little video store, and it was not far from where we lived in Union. Excuse me. So, but once I graduated high school and moved on to college, I had probably the best job in college. I got an opportunity to work for an airline as an intern. It was an intern program they had at the time, many years ago, and it was great. You worked at Newark Airport. You could work the counter, you could work the gates, which was, two very different things. I was there for a couple of years, got to know some really cool people, got great benefits as a, what are you, 19, 20 years old?
It's all about the benefits.
I could fly the country for $5 at the time, because you got the perks, the perks. So, that was a great job to have in college when you get a little time off, or like, you had vacation, summer vacation, whatever. But that was, I guess that was my younger years. I was on the path to going to college and graduating college. That was what it was expected.
And what was your goal when you got out? Was there a specific career you had your eyes on?
That's a great question. I had no idea what I was doing. Even when I was a kid, we talked about this. I didn't know what I was doing when I was a kid. I was just, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. School. Then I realized you got to know math to be an astronaut. I said, I'm not doing that.
So when you were going through, you did the internship program. You said that was in high school at the time, or
that was college.
Beginning of college. So you're kind of getting your taste of like the real world, because for the most part you're in school throughout high school. So at that point, while you're going through the motions, you're going to school, you had really no idea. So you what at that point when you were doing the airline thing, what was your mind? You wanted to be a pilot? Were you
no? It was just a cool opportunity. It was a job. I didn't see myself in that career, so to speak. It just wasn't for me. It was a stepping stone. When I got out of college, I got a degree in marketing many years ago. It's probably irrelevant at this point. So, I was a marketing major, And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. While I was still in college, I was still trying to figure it out. I thought, maybe advertising would be kind of cool. And I realized, started digging, and I wasn't really into the industry, into the mechanics of the world, or at least I didn't think so. I didn't know that much, to be honest. And I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. Then I was presented with an opportunity. I think it was probably a senior or late in junior year. They always have career fairs and stuff to recruit or at least expose juniors and seniors. And I was exposed to a retail executive training program that started after you graduated. And it was a 6-month program, and they basically teach you the ins and outs of instead of, starting out as a cashier in the store, so to speak, you have a college degree, they assume that you have certain skills. So they would choose a certain amount of students to be part of this executive training program. And I got chosen. Salaried, so it's a salary job, but basically we were going to class for half the day every day,
and then working,
so to speak. It was like maybe 20 people, a small group, and then you would work floors and get to know people and stuff. Long story short, I hated retail. I didn't know I hated retail until I did it.
It's true.
Retail sucks. I'm sorry if you're in retail. I'm sorry. I'm so inappropriate. But I went through the whole training program, got out, and I said, this is not for me. But it was cool. It was another stepping stone, so to speak. It was another chapter, so to speak.
And the key thing I want to point out is even at that age, you're taking on these opportunities again, rather than sitting back and wait for something to fall in your lap. Most people graduate college, have this degree, they're just sitting around waiting. You're at least taking these steps, and that's how you get your appetite or taste for what you like and don't like. How would you know you didn't like? Maybe you would have loved retail, so.
It's a good point. And I think there's a lot of pressure. I mean, generations changed. This was many years ago. I don't claim to be in the minds of, students who are graduating today. The landscape is very different. But I think there's a certain amount of pressure to come out of school or even be in school and know, what are you going to do? What are you going to, unless you're studying to be a doctor or something, at least something very, specific, an accountant or, I had a marketing degree. Technically, you can do almost anything. Right? But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was very open, which may have been great or may have been not so great. It did, I had the open mind to get out of school, take an opportunity, and say thank you, no thank you. Which I think is, I'm not giving myself props. I'm just hopefully this resonates with someone. It's okay to say thanks, it's not for me. It's not for me. Huge. It wasn't for me.
For sure.
But I didn't know it until I put myself in that position. And to your point, I put myself in a few positions, because then after that it's like, what am I going to do now?
Exactly.
You also jumped into it not knowing, like, you thinking you would like it or enjoy it, and then you figured it out that it wasn't for you, and that's huge. A lot of people, they think they're in jobs or in certain situations that they don't know if, they don't know if they can do it, and they're scared to do it, so they stay in these, dead end jobs for all these years, always wondering, coulda, woulda, shoulda. You actually did it and experienced it, and you decided that wasn't for you.
I did that a few times in my life. I've reinvented myself over and over. And maybe that's speaks to my character, my personality, but not everybody's like that. To your point, Antonio, some people are just like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm
comfort.
They're not rewriting anything. I think to stay on team, right?
No, you're right. And what was that embedded in you and growing up, or you just had that fire? I think you had that. You got to be born with it somewhat.
I don't know if I was born with it or if I just self-nurtured or so to speak. I don't think that came from my parents, to be quite honest. In all fairness to them, they were workers. And I mean that in the most wonderful way possible, because they worked their faces off so I could do better. Right. And I did.
And have opportunities.
And, but I don't, they were not,
entrepreneurial.
You want to open up a store? We'll fund that. My parents would be like, oh, you got out of school. There's more to be said about that. But,
Yeah.
You can lead me there. I'll wait.
I definitely relate to you in that aspect too. Like they weren't entrepreneurial, really. Like they didn't open up businesses. They didn't have that unless you were like the rich Portuguese people.
Yeah, not everybody. But I think it's very personality driven too.
Yeah.
You know, you have people who come here. Maybe they had a little store in Portugal.
Yeah.
You know, little dindo, whatever you call them, right?
For sure.
And then they come here and they see opportunity everywhere.
Yeah.
That's kind of ground into you too.
I agree. And my parents were entrepreneurs. Luckily, my grandfather migrated here from Portugal. He opened up a business. So growing up, I was part of that business. I saw how he reacted. So I was around it from a little kid. I mean, my mom wasn't really like that. She played it safe. Again, she had different circumstances. She had to support family and things like that. But I was exposed to that from a young age, which that's embedded in you. The work ethic is one thing, but when you see someone opening a business when you're young, you don't understand. You think it's cool. I'm playing like secretary and office in the back.
Right.
But growing up, you really start to appreciate like this guy at a driving school, insurance company, travel agency. He used to have all the people from Portugal come here, translate, and do all these different businesses in Perth Amboy for many, many years. That's where I got that exposure to like there's more. And he was big in the community, like donating, helping people, because it's inspiring to see people like that. But that's why one of the reasons why I love your story, because obviously I've known you for years, but we both started. And this music thing, right? This music thing, I talk about
This
it.
music, right?
And when you're young, you think it's cool, the club scenes. I got into it more. Yes, I love music. I was inspired, and that's ultimately how I got my start into how I am today in the DJ world. And by the way, Tony was the first guy who took me under my wing in high school as a sophomore. I was like, I want to be a DJ, but I was smart with it. YouTube wasn't that big back then. And I was like, what could I do to like pursue my career? And that's a good thing about this show that we're trying to talk about is if you have skill sets and you're interested, you got to surround yourself with the right environment, the right people, keyword, right people. Let's talk about that because a lot of people says they're right. I was fortunate that I got connected with somebody who was really a pro. And we talked about that before, about pros and non-pros. And just to kind of rewind a little bit. So you're doing all these jobs, but like I like to say, you find your purpose. I feel like when you're in motion and you're doing things, you start to pick up bits and pieces and experiences that essentially mold you into who you become. As far as like music, right? Where did this come about? Where you were like, I know you used to play the drums. I know you had a little bit of music, but okay, you had the college, you had the high school. How did how'd you start getting that taste of that music?
I've actually really thought about this because it's interesting. I wasn't sure until I really sat and I take a lot of journeys inside my head, right? Because there's a lot of stuff up there. Sometimes I just have to sit quietly. Yeah, I don't know. I also talk to myself. I'm going to put that out there.
Oh, yeah.
Do it a lot.
For sure.
Full-on conversations. But that's another conversation.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So the music thing, I thought I walked into it when because I started a little bit later as far as the DJing stuff, right? I was probably, 23, somewhere.
23 years old.
Yeah, a little bit older. A lot older than you were when you started.
No.
And then I thought about it and I'm like, this just kind of fell on my lap. There's a whole story there, but it didn't. Because if I really think about it, when I was a kid, no bullshit. When I was a kid, I'm talking like 8 years old, 9 years old. First of all, I loved music. Always loved it. I was listening to my grandma's old records, crusty stuff. It didn't matter. It was music. It was like my folks at the time, they bought what we called the stereo component system, right? It was the old school big stereos, you call them, right? Yeah. They have a record player. They have a cassette recorder player. They have the radio with the big freaking, it's this big dial. Oh, yeah. You know what a dial is? Right? Right? Yeah. So I remember this is a big deal. The speakers were huge. Right? This is my shit. So, I started experimenting when I was a kid. So there were record clubs way back where you could subscribe and you get a record of the month and you could order more records. Sound really old now. So what I would do is I would order the records and record them onto tape. So that you could take the tape with you.
Oh, that's right. I used to do the same thing, and that's right. You probably don't know a lot about this, Chris.
I know about it.
He knows about everything. He's around old guys all the time.
The stereo, we would, when the radio would play songs.
Yeah, you record it.
You put a blank tape. You just brought me back. I totally forgot about that.
He got you beat with the record. You had the radio.
Totally.
You did the records.
We used to do that all the time.
He did the record.
Yeah.
And that was at 8 you were doing that already?
Yeah, so the point of that, first of all, it speaks to my personality. I wouldn't buy the cassettes. Because if the cassette broke, and cassettes, do I have to define? Can you put a link to what a cassette is?
Yeah.
If the cassette breaks, you're shit out of luck. You just lost the album, right? So I was, me, right? I buy the record. I buy the album and then transfer it to tape. If I lose the tape or the tape breaks, which happen all the time, you do it again. You don't lose your $8 or $20 or whatever it was, right, for an album. So I started doing that, and then I realized, I got into this recording thing. So I started understanding. I don't know where I found this information. There was definitely no Google or YouTube at the time, right? I learned how to overdub on a home cassette player, which means you record once. Now, this makes no sense for music, but I was also like playing around with a microphone, right? So you record once, you back up, and without erasing, because there's an erase head in there, you block the erase head and you can overdub what you've recorded. So now you've recorded twice on the same. It's like multi-tracking. All right.
See,
that's
very and he didn't even have YouTube.
I didn't have YouTube. I don't remember how I found this out. You could take a little piece of film, cover up the erase. Never mind. I could probably still do it today. Anyway, my point was, I started thinking about this and I'm like, holy shit, I was doing this when I was a kid. And then, I mean, aside from my love of music and what have you, even when I was, I think it was in like 7th grade in grammar school, right? Lower school, whatever you call it. I was very good friends with another kid. We were, I wouldn't say class clowns, but we were fun. And we were really funny together. Right? At least everyone told us that, right? We started coming up with skits, and we started recording these skits on the cassette, which is where like this whole overdubbing thing came, right? So we're making these comedy albums, for lack of a better term, right? Yeah, this popped into my head a couple nights ago when we were talking about, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, oh shit, I don't think I ever told this story, right? So we would create these comedy cassettes, and we would do this like over the summer or during some break, whatever. Then we'd bring the cassette. We had 1 or 2 copies. We'd bring the cassette into class, and they loved our shit. So we would pass that cassette around like a freaking library book. You get to take it home tonight. You get to hear it for 2 days. You bring it back.
That's cool.
How nuts is that? I haven't thought about that in a few years.
And you guys were just making jokes.
We were skits. I don't remember much.
We do skits all the time. We gotta maximize on
it. Start recording. If you need a cassette recorder, I have it.
I have one in the basement, I'm sure, in the garage, laying around.
So you guys would do like
I don't
joke.
It was just funny. Like it was like I don't know, sketch comedy is what we were doing. We thought we were funny. I don't know. Well, everybody else did. Well, not everybody, but people thought we were funny. So like we would do this. And I hadn't thought about that in obviously so many years. It's one of those memories that like, when is that ever going to come out? And I was like, oh shit, I forgot we did that. And I think back, and the reason I bring this up is, number one, to make fun of myself because I don't really care, but also to give you a little bit of a foundation about, although I was on a traditional path, there was more to me than school and a job. Because as we go through, my timeline, which is, I hope it brings, I hope it resonates with, people who are watching or listening to this, and that you may think, or, someone has put you in, I won't say a box, but on a lane. I feel what happened to me is I suppressed a lot. I don't mean to sound like I was oppressed. I personally just suppressed. Gotta go to school. Gotta get out. Artist. What kind of shit is that? Right?
It's not de beneficios, right?
Right. Like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with an English lit, degree?
I know. Sorry, no offense. I know.
I speak English all the time. Most of the time. So as you fast forward, I thought about where I ended up, and I don't mean here, but just in the trajectory. And we can get to that story whenever. But when I finally realized, I'm like, oh, there's more to me. At least. And it wasn't enlightenment. It was just, circumstance, and it was there.
What point of your life, like how old were you at that point that you figured that out? Like that particular, that moment. What'd you say? I was probably around 23, 4, somewhere around there. So early 20s, so not long, maybe not 23, but maybe, so you graduate college 22, right? So you're on the 4-year program.
So yeah, so take 24, 25, somewhere around there.
And you're already at that point where you're doing the tapes and you're getting your feel for how hardware works and things like that.
At that point, so I had been exposed to DJing in what I would call my last corporate job, which was doing sales for a big hotel up in North Jersey. I went through a lot of versions of me, right? And that's my point, right?
Yeah.
So I was exposed to DJing, and we were DJing, private parties and stuff, and I never realized that DJing was an avenue, right? And there are a lot of different directions that DJing can take, as you know, right? But I never realized it was a thing where you could charge people and you could go and play parties and stuff. I just wasn't exposed to that.
Yeah.
And then little by little, I was like, oh, crap. All right, this is interesting. And then to get to answering your question a little more directly, it's more than being drawn to something. I think it was a push-pull. I was also kind of repelling from that world, the normal world, right? So I was doing sales for a while, and sales is, depending on how you look at it, I was doing corporate sales for a hotel. So we're talking quotas, we're talking, day to day, who'd you talk to? How many did you book? How many rooms did you book? What are your numbers? You're under, all that stuff. Not that they were like that, but
did you enjoy that? Or you didn't?
I ultimately did not. But there did come a time, I did it for some time. It wasn't years. It was maybe just under a couple of years. I didn't start there with the hotel. I actually started on the ground floor, quite literally. I learned the front office. I learned I went into the trenches, right? So to speak. Yeah. Excuse me. And they saw potential. And I had potential, to be quite honest, because I was always business minded too. And I think that's helped me a lot. I'm one of I call myself an artist who is also, professional and business minded.
Oh yeah.
And that's not everybody, because you can be an artist and be scatterbrained and, be trapped in your room painting
and you
for the rest of your life.
I think that corporate experience has totally helped you become that as well. Like it helped you with the DJing and the entertainment side, but having that, I feel, for me personally too, I feel like having that corporate background helps you in different industries.
Because you taste the business, how corporations ran.
If you're open to it. Because then not everybody's open to it. You could be in there going, I hate my life. I didn't hate my life, right? But to finally answer your question, there did come a day where I was just I'm not performing over the course of the last year or whatever. They're like, gotta let you go. All right. I understand. I kind of felt like eventually it was coming. I was not great at it, but I was okay. And I was very well liked, and, I made it up for it in other areas, but, cost cutting. And I said, okay. And then, now what? Right. I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed. And if there was a moment, I would say that was probably the moment, the straw that breaks the camel's back, as the old timies say, right? Yeah. And I said, true story, probably out loud, I will never work for someone else again. Now, obviously what I meant was in that setting, because, obviously we've all worked for other people. But I think at that point, I was already DJing. I was doing some of my own private events, nothing like what I eventually became, right? But it was the beginning. I was doing, I was starting to take on or get to know, bars, clubs, and I was honing my craft. I'd only been DJing a couple of years maybe. And I pushed myself as much as I could in my basement to learn the techniques, the actual techniques, not just, and
slamming songs in.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, not crowing, but it was all vinyl. Yeah. And it was all turntables.
And that's the thing I wanted to ask you too. Like, when you started in your basement, for instance, like learning the techniques, obviously at this time, there's really no YouTube. There's no information of how to even DJ. So like, I give it up to you from that, because I'm not in that field. I never was, but I know I've had a lot of friends who were, and I know how involved it is, but especially you starting out, not having any access to any social media or anything like that, and becoming the success that you have is very inspiring.
I appreciate that.
But how did you learn? How did you really perfect it I would say in the beginning stages? Like, how did you start learning?
I think I learned, I teamed up with a couple of guys, and that's how I was introduced to DJing. Mm-hmm. They took me out. That opened up the world to me. And then I started to understand what gets done and how you do it, more or less. They weren't like super great mixers, but I got it. I've never been a musician per se, but I've always been, I like to say, musically inclined. I am musical. So, and having a drumming background, I suck at drums, but I love to play. Having that background, you start to, you just understand music differently than a layperson, than a civilian, I call them, right? Somebody who is not either inclined to that or doesn't really understand, structure of music, whether it's overall or, anyway, not to get too technical. I just figured it out. So the way we did it, old school, was you would take an instrumental, you would take an a cappella.
That's how I learned.
Yeah, you did. Quite well, I have to say. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great.
But that's how you learn. I still remember some of those lessons.
J-Lo's,
that's right.
What song was that with J-Lo? Tonight?
Waiting for Tonight.
Waiting for Tonight. Or a beat. That's how you learn how to mix.
Yeah. That's probably the extended mix, because it went on forever.
That's nuts.
No, but anyway, to answer your question, more directly, that's how you learn. You figure it out. If you have that inclination. If you don't have that inclination, then you have to have somebody kind of show you. Not that you needed that, because you were inclined.
Yeah, you got to have it. Yeah.
If you weren't inclined, that would drive me crazy. I wouldn't have taught you everything, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's how it ultimately started. And to get back to the previous point, I think that was the moment when I was like, okay, wait a second. I think I need more than this. Or maybe I just, wanted to sit around and play music all day.
So you were still working your job while working the DJing at one point, hybrid.
When I started, and there wasn't much overlap. I don't recall exactly, maybe a year. I don't know, maybe a year and a half. But, after I left that job, then yes, I would go out. Eventually, for those guys, they would hire me to, for, pennies on the dollar, so to speak. But I would go out, and that's how I learned. And that's how I was responsible. The one thing that is, I realized that the DJ aspect is not necessarily relevant to everyone. But the one thing I will highlight is that being business oriented the entire time was absolutely critical. It has been critical to my success over many, many years. So that is super important to highlight. And that doesn't mean you have to know everything. It doesn't mean you have to be a business person. It just means if you're going to do something, unless you think if you can move to an island and DJ those happy hours and be okay with that, and they feed you and you make a couple bucks, God bless you, man. That's awesome. But if you're going to jump into whatever your passion is, whether it's DJing, whether it doesn't matter, photography, it could be anything, approach it, or at least have take the opportunity to understand that it's not all fun and games. Right. Even today, when I post videos of cool projects I've done in the voiceover space, or I post fun videos from inside the booth of, outtakes and all that fun stuff, that's cool. But that part, the recording part, that's a sliver of what you actually do.
What it really takes.
If you'd like, I can record myself sending emails to prospects and clients.
That phone ring at all different
how are you?
Right?
Just making sure I'm still on your radar. That sort of stuff. That's the business side that nobody talks about, and the marketing and all that stuff. So that was really critical, even at that early stage.
So right out the gate, when you left corporate, so ultimately what made you make that full-time leap was because you got let go, which again, your mind wasn't there in the corporate job.
It was a catalyst, I think. It was a catalyst.
So ultimately that helped really give you that push, and you kind of were faced with that decision. So let's just say somebody's in that predicament. Maybe they have a technically DJ was like a side hustle at the time, you would say, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Side hustle. So there's probably so many people that are corporate people. Different circumstances. You were alone. You'd have to support a family.
Correct.
But, it has to be the right timing. But ultimately, you made that shift and pivot because you were back in the corner. Either A, you're going to find another job and go back on the corporate ladder, or B, you're going to pursue this side hustle and make it something. And ultimately, you decided, obviously, here we are today, to pursue that career in music at the time, the DJing.
Yes, I think that's relatively accurate. And the nuance that you put into that, I think, is really important. I was living with my folks.
Yeah.
Right. I was always, even as a kid, responsible. Like back then, if you had your phone line at the time, we all had separate phone lines. But my point of that is, number one, so you can laugh at me. That's okay. But what's really important is like, I paid for that phone line into my room. Right.
Yeah.
I picked up my car payments.
Yeah.
Yes, my folks helped me buy my very first car, but I picked up my car payments from there. Right. So responsibility. Right. But yes, I had some responsibilities in that respect, but I wasn't supporting anyone. Thankfully, my folks were still working. Both of them, I think. So it was relatively stable.
Yeah.
In terms of income and being able to take that leap. But to be quite honest, I would say probably the hardest part of that whole process or time in my life was telling my parents. Telling my parents.
Yeah.
That you wanted to do this full time.
Yeah.
I still remember where I was standing
Yeah.
in the kitchen with my parents, telling them, thank you for the college degree. Thank you for supporting me. Over the course of the last couple of years, when I bounced from big gig to big gig, and by gig, I mean corporate jobs. But I'm okay. I'm going to be a DJ.
What'd they say?
What do you think they said?
Yeah.
My mom's heartbroken.
Yeah.
That was, and I'm an empath, right? So I take your feelings into consideration.
Yeah.
That was difficult. I was very different at the time. I was young too.
But you had the conviction. I feel like you had to, because you knew, hey, this may be a side hustle, but you saw your potential. Because if you didn't believe in yourself, you wouldn't be in front of your parents that are supporting you. So something in you said, I could do this. You had to prove it to yourself. Ultimately.
Yeah. And I think it allowed. I think what did it too, what gave me that confidence, was being able to tap back into, that piece of me that apparently never went away, which is that little young artist guy who loved music and loved production and loved to make those cassettes and loved to record and didn't mind his own voice, and worked my dad's video camera when I was home in the summer and figured out how to overdub, and I made stupid music videos. That's kind of shit I was doing, right? I forgot all about that person, even though it was only a few years before that, but I felt like there was a bubble. Right? There was a bubble, and eventually it came up. It came up, and I said, I think I can do this. Or maybe I said, I know I can do this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that's
so having that conversation to like day one, like you were still working at the time. Like, how did you start building your name? Just like any other business.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there wasn't a ton of DJs, but
there's plenty of DJs.
Yeah, especially this day. We talked about that.
It was a very different time too. But again, being who I am and my personality, I said, okay, now you can do some private parties that these guys are sending you. Eventually, I went on to do my own. Right. Eventually, I was doing everything at the time, meaning all kinds of parties. But then I said, okay, this has to produce.
Yeah.
Right.
Business.
So yes. I was, kind of going down the road of, booking parties and whatever. One of my friends said, bar I work at, looking for a DJ. They don't give a shit about what you play, honestly. Right.
Yeah.
I said, I'm there. Take whatever, right? I think it was crappy. I think it was like $75 for the night. But you get tips and stuff like that. That was a lot. That was a long time ago too. My point is, from there, that opened my mind and said, oh, this is a thing. Now I'm exposed to another facet of the business, but also another avenue of business. Yeah. So I said, okay, there's a bunch of bars in the area. Right. So I could take a shift here. Oh, that one's owned by the same people. Well, I've been there for a couple months and I can ask for a shift at the big place. Right. So now I went from that whole story to eventually, don't ask me about timeline because I don't recall, but to eventually working no bullshit, 5 to 6 shifts a week, whether they were daytime, nighttime, doubles, a day into the night. Regular bars, strip clubs. I
didn't care.
I built a business.
You had the hustle too, and most importantly
100%.
is the passion. You had the passion because
100%.
people that don't have that passion don't hustle the way you did.
Oh, I hustled, dude. I hustled.
That's passion.
To the point where I built a full-time schedule.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot, but it was a full-time schedule.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing out of all this is like you took whatever was there. Like that's right. A lot of things we talked about in previous episodes, especially with real estate. People want to touch certain price points at the beginning. Sure. They don't want to deal with certain quality. But the whole point is you gotta go out there and do it. And Nicky, you didn't discriminate on an event. You know what? Nope. It's more exposure, it's more practice, and you know what? Some kind of money. And that's what I'm hearing when you're saying that. But then you also looked at it from business mind. So how can I maneuver with the cards I got now, the chips I got now? That's okay. Right. And that's a business mentality. And I feel like if you're watching a podcast like this, you got to have some kind of business mentality to be looking to rewrite your legacy. So hopefully there's somebody out there that could really hear that and understand that. So
just go after everything, don't be so selective. Like especially if you're passionate the way you are and he was and I was, you have to go after everything you can.
To that point, patience is a lost virtue.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I know you can attest to this.
For sure.
Nobody has patience anymore. And I don't mean scrolling on your phone. I mean patience to get somewhere, right? We all want to be there instantly, especially when it comes, like you see all this shit on Instagram, YouTube. Oh, yeah. Tony's, rocking these weddings and, he's charging how much? Amazing. I want to be there. Cool. Start carrying my wires.
Right. Yeah.
Making maybe $100.
They all see the success, but they never
Let's
see
start there.
Let's
start there.
Yeah.
So that was my carrying the wires.
Oh, yeah.
Taking those shifts, carrying 6 crates of records everywhere. Oh, no, we were doing CDs by that time. So, mostly CDs. But my point is, that was not my end goal. That was a stepping stone for me. My end goal at the time, I wanted to be a club DJ.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to be Tiesto. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Never happened, by the way. But I wanted to play the clubs because I developed a very technical kind of process, right? And I love to mix, and I was a house music DJ, so that was kind of my thing. I wanted to play in the clubs. I wanted to play at dance floor. Screw this, little bar stuff. People get drunk and girls half naked, whatever. That was kind of cool,
Spilling
actually.
drinks everywhere.
That was kind of cool. But that was a stepping stone for me. Yes, I did buy a house. Yeah, because I worked my freaking face off.
And like you said, you start at the ground level, and we talked about that even in real estate, you bring in value. You're starting from the ground. Like, for example, like you got these events because you were connected with the right group. You showed your worth, and you got your way in there. That's how because you didn't just, yes, you can go out and look for bars and do it the manual way, but you leveraged your network that you built. Yeah, people saw, and that's how you started growing.
And your value, and you added your value to it. With no egos.
No ego.
That's huge. We always talk about that.
Know your worth, but no ego.
Right.
I show up on time. Everything goes smoothly. I'm a reasonable DJ at the time. Right? I was a reasonable DJ. I developed a mic presence, which that was new to me. I treated, like when I was playing bars, I treated it almost like a radio thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you were doing a day shift, like, there's nobody around, a couple like blue collar workers at the bar, and nobody cares. Yeah. I cared. Yeah. You know what I did? Actually, this just popped into my head. I would record myself on tape because we had a tape deck. I would record myself so you could do what's called an air check, or was called an air check. At a radio station, you would record so that you could listen back and, hear how you sounded or use it for demos or whatever. So I would do air check. Nobody did that. No. I would listen. That's how I perfected my mixing. So I would record if I did like a 15-minute dance set, I would record that. How was my mix? Oh, screwed up there. Yeah, that wasn't great. Or that didn't really work. That's okay. Who cares? Yeah. I cared, right?
Yeah.
And that eventually drove me.
Well, when Chris had told me who you were, and we've been talking about you for a while, I was really excited and inspired, but most of all, I was surprised that you were like one of the biggest staples in my teenage years growing up, going to all the clubs in Jersey. I mean, Abyss. We used to, me and my friends, when we would go to the city and go try to break into Webster Hall, we were in 25. Yeah. I mean, I used to hear you on the radio all the time when it would be like, Webster Hall.
That was right?
I had no idea that's what you were. And when you agreed to do this podcast, I was like, that guy was a staple in my life.
I'll send you some of those radio spots because I still have them.
That's so cool.
It's amazing.
Man. Like, how did you? And that's what I want to talk about too, going from DJing. But how did you get into that aspect? And what year was that you kind of transitioned into that?
So starting there, the Webster Hall radio ads. So to clarify, I was doing all the Webster Hall radio spots. I forget, for a number of years. That started around early 2000s, maybe somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. But you used to do that. You did the Abysses. You did. So I used to hear you everywhere.
Yes. Abyss, I actually did a couple of short residencies. I'd do a summer residency, right? Because it was light. I wasn't their main roster DJs. I knew them all. Yeah. And there's a lot of stories behind that and how I met some people. But to your point, I think that relationship probably started around 99, 2000 when I got invited. So I was doing a podcast before podcasts were a thing. No joke.
I remember that.
That's T2 Blender.
Oh, T2 Blender,
right?
Oh,
excuse me. And that was, I didn't even understand the concept of a podcast. It was the beginning of podcasts, honestly. That was in the late 90s. Don't mean to bore you with history, but there's a story there. Yeah. I was doing a podcast, so you'd put it out on iTunes at the time or whatever, and you get downloads, and some were great and some were so-so. You could check your stats. But anyway, there was also a streaming station that was started out of New York City before streaming was a thing. It was nothing like what it is today. It was streaming on the internet, and you would log in, to hear the stream, a live stream. I got invited to take that show to that live stream. It's called Metro Mix Radio, if anybody's listening and knows that. It was a long time ago. I was, somewhat friendly with the guy who started it. He's like, I'd love for you to do a show, but it's a weekly show. 2 hours live. Sure. Fuck it. 11 a.m. to or 11 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah. My parents didn't like that so much because they were. I think they weren't around. They'd visit.
That was in Edison. You were in Edison.
That was in Edison.
Yeah.
Wow. So I say that to give you context, not to give you my life story. I believe it was out of that relationship or knowing someone knew somebody. I got referred to the creative at Webster Hall who handled all the advertising because they were a mega club, and at the time. It was a little bit different, obviously. You would get your radio ads, here in New York, if you're familiar, Z100, KTU, PLJ, maybe, Hot 97, all that stuff, all the big stations, the flagship stations out of New York. You would run club ads, right, to get people in the door, especially a place like New York, Webster Hall, New York. So I got put up for that, and I had a conversation. Okay, do this one spot. Cool. I had production chops because I had started years before that producing. I was producing music with a partner in the early days of producing electronic music, right? I guess. Wow. Yes, on a computer.
I got some of those songs. They got some bass. What's the one? The drug. What's the one that's the music is my drug? Oh,
I wrote that shit.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, those are good days.
I put that in the background.
Only because I wasn't a drug person. So that's actually the story behind that.
Yeah.
Because I felt like everybody was on drugs. But anyway, everybody was. My point was I got put to do that first spot. So I was already producing what we call imaging, which is like DJ drops and, that sort of stuff. That's how I carried over my production chops. And I was doing all the ads for Metro Mix Radio, the streaming station.
Oh
yeah, listen to that. That's dated now, right? I was learning, dude. I was learning on the job because I know, and it's one of those fake it till you make it. But I mean, I did have knowledge and technical ability. You just have to hone it, right?
For sure.
So anyway, to get to your point, I was offered the opportunity to do that one spot. And that lasted probably, 5-6 years.
I'm telling you, I used to listen to this guy all the time in the car with my friends or going down the shore. The big thing in Jersey is for the summertime, we go down, we're always down the shore. We rent a house and stuff like that. And I used to hear you all the time. And it's just one of those things, it's buried in your brain. You don't really think about it unless someone brings it up. And the second you brought that up,
it comes back, right?
I was like,
it's buried in there.
It's him. Get him on. We got to get him on.
It's amazing.
So to that point, you know what I would do? Yeah. Here's how I work. Getting back to air checks. I would get a list of time and day when those spots would run, because it's all pre-programmed. Find out when the spots run, no matter what I was doing, as long as I can get to a radio. I turn that on. Do I like what it sounded like? Was it overly compressed? In the beginning it was, because FM crunches everything down, just like streaming stations now, they crunch everything down. If you're too loud, you actually come out softer because it crunches all your audio.
Compression.
Same with a compressor, on an FM radio, radio. So I was like, okay, my voice didn't cut through enough. It's too much bass in my voice. It's too much bass overall. You don't need all that. Sounds great in the studio. It doesn't sound great on FM radio. So every week I had the opportunity to adjust on the job.
For sure.
You perfected it.
Yeah.
I got pretty good.
Every week. But the thing that I'm noticing, even with sales, is you take the time to see what you put out, you hear yourself, and you adjust. Right. And I think that's key in any craft you do, whether it's sales. I remember in sales, I started out, I used to record myself. I guess it's very similar.
There you go.
On the cold calls, I used to record myself in my pocket, how I used to sound in front of buyers. I'm like, am I talking too much? Am I stuttering? Right. And same thing with the mixing and the DJing. I mean, my mixes in the beginning were terrible, but everyone's terrible. You got to evolve. That's how you evolve.
You don't know anything until you do it, figure it out, do it, screw it up.
Screw it up and do it again.
Screw it up, fix it, move on.
And that's the business mindset too, and just I have to say this, taking pride in what you do, and I think a lot of people lose that, and like I brushed off that. I mean, too, growing up younger, it's like you got to take pride in what you do. Everything you do it to the best of your ability. You be the best at it. At least the best you could be at it. That's my mentality. A lot of people don't have that attitude. But again, you've built a career in this industry. I want to highlight that again, because we talk about legacy. You were on the path to essentially, you could have been, working a corporate job, probably been collecting a 401k soon, probably making multiple six figures doing this.
For sure.
But, and then you had that conversation with your parents. And again, we talked a little bit about that. And then I'm diving through now. So what I'm hearing is you're networking, but you're taking steps no matter what. You're not still, you're doing the bars, you're doing the nightclubs. And ultimately, I want to go back to the picture. So you're doing, I want to paint this picture now. The Abyss nights. House music back then was like new.
Oh yeah,
like I've heard some of the house music. That's why I grew up. That was my first taste of music. Was Tony's house music. Like all those great tracks. Like going for days.
It was good. It was
good stuff. And it started to come back like everything else. More tech house now. I'm not talking about too much about music, but so you're doing that. You're doing those events. And the whole time, what are some of the struggles you're coming across? Like, was your financial problem? Like, were you finding yourself falling short on bills? Like, what were some of the things when you're building this career out in music and doing these events? Like, what were some of, I'm sort of sketchy people in the nightlife, and we both know that. What were some of the things you're grinding through that you were coming across while you're building?
Grinding is a great word, because I call it the freelancer's lifestyle. It's always about, what's the next gig, so to speak. Right. So especially to give you the quick version, I said I was doing private events when that was a long time ago. In the beginning of my career, that started to sour on me. Right? I just wasn't feeling right.
You weren't happy with that.
I think, to be honest with you, I don't mean this in a weird way, but I'm just going to say it. I was a little ahead of the time. Right. So I was bringing a little bit of the club stuff to a wedding, and some people really appreciated it, but
it's such a traditional thing.
It was still about, the electric slide, the hokey pokey, or whatever the hell we were doing at the time. Right. And I was like, this doesn't taste right. Right. Because I wanted to be a club DJ. I also had aspirations, and I felt like,
it's a fire.
I don't think I have this mentality, or at least not at that level today, but life, you figure stuff out. You're in a different place. I definitely am. But at the time I said, okay, I'm going to wean myself off of that so I can dedicate myself. And then I started getting into the club stuff. Right. So, one of the biggest or most important, I guess, club gigs I got was a friend of mine was a great DJ, still is. And he was playing a big room every week, Saturday night. He asked me to be his MC. So what happened? Well, I had been practicing my mic skills in the bars all those years. You see what I'm saying, guys? It's not about the DJing. It's not about the MCing. It's about laying the foundation for your future self. I said, I'm there. And I picked up the microphone and I just did shit, right? And also figured it out. That's where I really learned. First of all, I had it, right? I had it in here. I just had to find it, and then you have to fine tune it. So whatever you have, use what you have, and then build on it. Whether that means learning, that means coaching. And nowadays, watching YouTube or listening to really good guys who know what they're talking about, whatever the situation is, fine tune that. I started to fine tune that. And that's how I learned and tapped into the amazing feeling of talking to 800-900 people at the same time, getting them to do some cool stuff and working with the music or coordinating with my DJ, or I call him my DJ, who was in a balcony 75 feet away. We would coordinate. What are we doing? What are you going into? Okay, I need a break. I need 10 seconds.
What a high.
Dude, yeah. And I did that for years. Yeah. And we were on top of it. So there were challenges. And obviously, my point was, although I but continued to evolve what I wanted to do. Again, what did I do? I created the space to work the bars. Sometimes I'd work the bar in the morning, go to the nightclub at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever it was, right? You can work till 2 a.m.
MCing.
Rocking the crowd on a Saturday night, right? So the challenge was to find work.
That's right.
For lack of a better term. Because that's where I was going. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Being a freelancer, it's always about, who are you working with? Who's working with you?
Yeah.
Right? So you have to constantly you're always on the hustle. And by hustle, I don't mean, getting one over. I mean, working for the work.
Because you said you did a big room spot.
Yeah.
So that person, that DJ working with, that's how you got into doing those big, because you were emceeing at first, and then you started, that was like your first shot, like, hey, come MC for me.
And it worked. I mean, we were there a couple of years. We ran that Saturday night to the chagrin of the MC who ran Saturday nights at Abyss, which was far, but not that far. And he used to come in, and we're friends for a long time. We've had this conversation over drinks, and he goes, man, I hated you guys. I'm like, bro, I know, but we're good.
What spot was that? Was that a Deco? No, what were you doing?
My spot was, what was it called? Stingrays. Stingrays in Old Bridge.
I heard of
Stingrays in Old Bridge. It was far, but he was just jealous. We had a big room. I mean, Abyss was a big room, but they remodeled a couple different times. These are big nightclubs here, were big nightclubs here in Jersey, especially years ago.
Now there's storage units. That's crazy.
And
I think they changed.
I think it's a car wash.
Yeah.
The good old days. Anyway, to get to actually answer the question, that's always the I think the biggest challenge for a freelancer, right? Entrepreneur, however you want to refer to yourself, is where's the work? Where's it going to come from? You have to work for it. And I went to clubs during the day to meet with the manager if I had an in, hopefully, to drop off a CD, to just hope you'd get a little bit. Yeah. I mean, that's how it works.
Wow.
And then it was, how many heads can you get in the door?
That's what it is. Yeah.
That was the promoter phase, and I got out shortly after that.
I did that for a few years.
Promoting life.
Oh yeah. In New York City.
Thanks for that.
Oh, it was. I don't even know how I survived that. Like, that's why I give it up to the DJs, because you guys work some crazy hours and then have to go home. And I got promoting for. I used to do it for my DJ friend 2 times a week on the weekend. And I would just get there. I would have to be at the club outside the door by 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And then be there until 3, 4
with your
a.m.
list.
I'm just like, still drive home. And it was not just like a zombie,
Hustle.
When you have passion and hustle, it's
hustle. Love the nightlife.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Nah. What do you do now, Tony? What are you doing?
I go to sleep around 10 o'clock.
I go to sleep at 8:30 actually, so I got you beat.
Amazing.
It's the best. 8 hours. Right to bed.
What do I do now?
Yeah, what are you doing now?
So I transitioned out of my very long career in private events, because eventually I did get out of the clubs completely. And for the last 20 plus years, almost 25, excuse me, I rebooted my private event, work through wonderful guys that I was very close to and still am to this day. I had opportunity. And I was in that space for many, many years. That's what eventually led me to SC Event Group and helping Jason start SC Event Group.
Yeah, you're the
if you
first
guys are familiar, yes,
he
and I a lot of calls, and we he built it for the most part, but he does credit me with helping him, which is very kind of him, and it is true. But regardless, I moved on from that, and that was a very conscious decision too. I told you I've reinvented myself many times over the last years, or many times over my lifetime, and my last private event, officially my last wedding, because eventually I did only play weddings for the last probably almost 15 years of my life, was about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And that's when, well, I'd made the decision before that, but that's when I literally pulled the plug on an amazing career that I worked really hard for. And this is a recurring theme. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh, it's stupid, actually, maybe. But my point is, so I could go full time or continue to develop my studio and my voiceover work.
Look at that.
One thing I really wanted to ask you, because this is really important, I think, for people in certain industries, not just music, but also real estate. There are some times, especially in the real estate world, where, you know, you work full time, you start getting that burned out feeling, but you don't know you're getting burned out.
Yep.
But when do you? I think it's very important to distinguish the difference between a burnout and also to distinguish when you're really done with something.
Okay.
My question to you is, because you were such a huge success, you reinvented yourself, you wore so many different hats. When did you decide, especially in your last career, when did you really decide this is it? What brought you to that decision?
That's a great question. I'll rewind because my answers tend to be long. I hope they're worthwhile. I'll rewind to a moment I had. Oh man, it had to be close to 15 years ago. And it was something I observed, especially in the wedding industry. So now we're talking about the wedding industry.
Yeah.
And I'm not equating myself to that, but I'll get there. I'll get to the point. A grumpy photographer. Oh, another wedding. Oh man, I'm getting tired of this shit. And I'm like, how dare you actually? I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I'm having a whole conversation, as I often do. And I'm like, how dare you bring that kind of bullshit energy to the most important day, at least to this point of their life? And yes, that's always how I approached it. I said, I will never, ever be that guy. Yeah. Ever. And I think that always stuck with me. And he was the only one. That was the culmination of, you hear you hear it all the time. You've been around long enough. And like people who are just like, oh, another gig. What? Every day is the best day ever. I know that sounds like very Pollyanna bullshit. And okay, I'm embellishing a little bit, but yeah, it is all about that. You know what? Treat this like a performance. Bruno Mars doesn't take the stage and go, shit, I have to sing that song again.
Yeah.
Screw these people who paid $300-400 a ticket or more, whatever. Yeah. Right? Not that I'm equating myself to that.
Yeah.
But take that mindset, a performer's mindset. This is something I get into when I mentor, MCs or budding MCs or what have you. Get into that performer's mindset. Show up every time, even if you're full of crap. Right? You go, showtime. It's game. What are you going to do?
Change your energy. You're having a bad day. Change your energy.
Curtains up. What are you going to say? Right. Yeah, I don't feel like it.
Oh yeah,
you bro.
That's right. Yeah.
Show up. They're paying you money. Hopefully,
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I was getting paid, and I was doing really well. So anyway, my point was, I will never be that guy. I never became that guy. Thank
God. Yeah.
I think that was always in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be that guy, right?
Yeah,
I think I was always afraid of that. And Chris will attest to this. He was on so many events with me, and even right till the end, I gave it everything. On the dance floor, off the dance floor, on phone calls, even if I had a crappy day. And you know what? Oh, these people, they're driving me crazy. I love them, but they're driving me a little, this one particular, they're driving me crazy. Okay, so what? Show up. Show up, hang up, get it out of the way, scream into the void.
But what was that point that you were just like,
so I was getting it wasn't so much that, Antonio, because that sounds very, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
It was never like that. Actually, I wrestled with this. Really, really hard.
I remember.
Keeping in mind that this was always the plan. This was always the plan for me because I've been doing voiceover and studio work for 25 years on some level. Not at this level, fortunately, but on some level. So that was always, I always said, yes, first of all, my goal was only play weddings. That's my goal. So eventually I worked out of the smaller events.
Remember that.
You build a brand, you build a brand, you build a brand. People love you. That's amazing. Thank God. Referrals, build a brand, online, YouTube. Oh shit, this is working.
Yeah.
Right? I think they like me, right? That kind of vibe, right? But it was always the goal was to be able to do studio full time. And that means production and voiceover, right? The catalyst, I would say, was over COVID. My wife and I, we both had a lot of time. And imagine
stuck in the house
so
all day.
Imagine being a live event entertainer, which is what I was, going out for a full calendar of events every year, and then not. The exact opposite of that. So that was a shock to the system, but it also gave me the clarity, the opportunity to think, because I'd had so many conversations. Quick fact: the wedding season. There's a wedding season. It's seasonal,
especially in Jersey.
Yeah, especially in Jersey. So in the winter, you have a couple months that really you're not doing a lot. You're definitely not going out. You're cleaning wires. You might be talking to some clients on the phone or Zoom or whatever, right? So being that it's cyclical, those were the times in my normal life where I'd be like, finally, I get time for the studio, start building back up. I'm working on Drop House. Go. Oh shit, it's March. I gotta start calling people. I gotta start working on my stuff. I mean, full calendar of events. Repeat, rinse, repeat, right? What they say? Years go by. Yeah. Right? So, and there's a parallel there, right, to how you approach problems. You got to get out of the problem. Not that was a problem, but
it's a cycle.
Back away. Go take a walk. Take some time away from something you're trying to figure out. I couldn't figure out how to walk away from that amazing career. It was amazing. Right? Making good money, steady flow of clients. I can't ask for more as being a private event DJ or wedding MC, right? So having COVID, where you have a break, a hell of a break. Number one, I had, after I, sat in the corner and cried a lot because the rug got pulled out from under me, and all of a sudden you have 0 events.
Oh yeah.
For 3/4 of that year. But my wife had time off too. And we had a lot of conversations. God bless her, man. She hears me say the same shit over and over. Really? We have to talk about this again? She didn't really say that. Well, in her mind, she probably did. I mentioned her because she was a fantastic support structure for me, because it gave me the, I don't want to say permission, but I want to say permission for self. It's okay if you feel this way, and it's okay for you to do this, because if not now, when?
Yeah.
Right? That's what true. Crystallized the need for me to move. Because if I don't take steps towards the future I want, it's not going to happen, because it hasn't happened in the past 8 to 10 years. It's only gotten crazier because I've gotten more successful.
Yeah.
What a wonderful problem to have. But also, if that's not your plan for the rest of your life or your later stage in life, which I feel I'm at, it's not going to happen. And now that I think about it, it kind of mirrors or reflects back on a lot of choices I made over the course of my life. I took steps to get somewhere.
Of course.
So it wasn't about taking the bar gigs. It was about getting to the clubs. It wasn't just about taking the clubs. And I learned how to MC, and I learned mixing, and there was a what's next. So here I eventually made that decision out loud and said, okay, I'm going to do this. There's a plan in place. It's going to take 2.5 years. And that's commitment, if nothing else.
Yeah, so strategic. Like you already had this.
I had to because again, just quick filler in the background.
Yeah.
My clients book me 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years out right? You can't just unplug. Okay, you know what? I quit.
I'm done. Yeah.
I mean, can, but I didn't. I'm not.
You don't want to go down like that. Yeah.
Way. I'm not built that way. And my wife even said, well, why don't you dwindle your calendar? You know, go from full event to, you know, maybe just do 10, maybe do 15 a year and just still, you know, kind of wean yourself because, you know, you're going to miss it and this and all these things. I think she just didn't want me to be around the whole time.
Yeah.
Thank God it's a big house. But I said, you know, I don't think I can do that. I'm either all in or I'm not, because that causes its own stress with my personality. Because
you start second guessing.
And then I'm like, oh, I got an event in 4 weeks. I better start rehearsing, make sure I still know what I'm doing.
Yeah, because you're not sure.
So so I said, nope, it's going to be cold, but it's going to progress. So I progressed over the following, you know, couple of years. You know, Jason and I had plenty of conversations about this, and he was so understanding. I also gave him basically 2.5 years notice.
Yeah,
you know, that I was leaving the group. So it was to answer your question, Antonio, it's a little bit more of a process. It wasn't just like one day, but it had been, you know, something I want to work towards.
I think it's inspiring. The reason why I asked that is because so many people, especially I'm very good friends with a lot of agents in this industry, and we have a lot of good conversations. And I know agents that have been in the business 20 years, some 30 years, some 5 years. And a lot of them, I notice usually after like that 10-year mark, we have conversations, they feel burned out. And we have conversations where they're just like, I want to get out of the business. I've lost my passion. And then some other agents are like, it's not that I'm losing passion, I'm just overworked. But some people have contradicting ways of kind of articulating that, where they don't know if that they feel like that's burnout, or is it time to move on to something else?
Well,
that's really why
they could be conflicted.
Yeah,
they could be conflicted. They might not be able to admit to themselves ABC.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a very self-aware person, I think, for the most part. And self-awareness is a big trait. It's a really important trait for, I think, life in general, to be honest. You don't know you're an asshole? You really should take a look in the mirror. Okay. Not you, obviously. Sorry. That was an aside. But self-awareness, right? So I did have conversations with myself. And the conversations went something like, I show up every time.
Yeah.
I will never, ever short a couple that has trusted me with this role, meaning playing their wedding and hosting their wedding. And I took that super seriously, right? But I also was aware enough that to say to myself, well, you know what? Could I move on? Would I be okay with moving on? I mean, I've been doing this for, you know, almost 25 years in that capacity. Could I be? Yeah, you know what? A change of pace would be okay. I'd be okay with that. But I had to work through that because I think so much of our identity, or maybe it's just me, I don't think so. So much of our identity is tied to what we do professionally, at least in our culture. Culture meaning America. So when all of a sudden, okay, so let's say it's black and white. I'm a DJ today. Tomorrow, I'm not a DJ. Well, shit. Who am I? Am I an imposter in the voiceover world? Well, that sucks because now you're pretending. You're starting all over again. Like, you understand? So much of my identity, I think, was tied to being this wedding host, to being this DJ for so many years, to the history that you've allowed me to speak about, which I really appreciate the opportunity, right? So much of our identity, or my identity, is tied to that. You wrestle with that. And I'm not talking a couple of days. I'm talking about that last year and a half where I'd be like, oh shit. And I remember, to be honest, my very last event, I remember pulling out and going, all right, I'll never do that again. And I won't. Not in that capacity. Like I go out with some of the guys and help out and mentor and all that stuff. But that's the last time I get to hit a home run for a couple. By that time, I had reconciled a lot of things. I think I did my own therapy.
Oh yeah, man.
But it was really difficult.
Yeah, it was a 25-year career.
Fucking ballsy.
It's not like
This guy's reinvented himself.
Yeah,
like
well,
that's
that's the thing. But you're constantly rewriting and reinventing, and that's been with you since the very beginning. And one of the things I'm hearing the common denominator too is you had really, really good support. I mean, you had your wife, you had your parents.
My parents, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's important. And for people maybe don't have that support, maybe they want to find friends. Like, how have you been fortunate to find right and good people like in your life? Like, you've always lucked out with good. Not brushing myself, good mentees.
Like I've been blessed, bro.
Yeah,
not bullshitting.
It's just like what do you again? If somebody maybe doesn't have the family support structure, or maybe they're not married, maybe they're a bachelor for whatever reason. What is some things you can get? Some practical things that what would you do?
To be around the right people, like to help them.
I think today more than ever, I think it's easier to find and ultimately surround yourself with people.
That's true.
The correct people. There's a sense of there's community. I mean, if you select it properly, I'm not talking about going down Facebook or Instagram rabbit holes, but there's now today I didn't have any of that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago for sure. So being able to find, for example, in your space, I would imagine. I've never been a realtor. It's not my thing. But we have so much in common, right? Because there's a lot of commonality here. And that's why you invited me to share my story, because hopefully it inspires and lays down a lot of common foundation. In your world, I would imagine that it's a lot easier today to find guys like yourself who are straight shooters, are doing well in their fields, and if you are willing to take someone on and share if they're the right person, right, and if there's dynamic. Look at us. He started with me when he was 14 years old. 14 years old.
Yeah.
14 years old. But I saw a lot in him. He was a reasonable kid. It was all right. That was serious. But that was through people that we knew, people that I know, and excuse me, that's how that came together. But today more than ever, I mean, the social networks exist really. I mean, work them properly, and wow, what an opportunity! What
a great time to be alive!
It is, and you know what I was thinking? I think about this a lot. The world is absolutely effed. Totally. That notwithstanding, what an amazing freaking time to be alive. You have never had access to so much sitting in your underwear on the freaking couch if you choose to capitalize on it.
Yeah, the right way.
If you choose to capitalize on it. Now, if you're the type of person, no offense, I really don't care. If you're the type of person who is inclined to like, I don't feel like doing anything today. Right? God bless you, dude. I've never been that kind of person. Even today. I mean, we have our rituals. We watch a little TV. My wife and I would chill out. There's a lot of wine and a lot of fun conversations. But I've never been one to say, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. Screw it. I don't feel like doing anything. I actually am. I have the most amount of guilt to taking some time off. I did that this week.
Guilty.
I planned for it. So I said, give yourself the pass. And I did. I went for a motorcycle ride. My wife was traveling for work. I took care of the cats and I said, peace. This is a little me time. And I never get to do that. Anyway, my point, I don't want to lose my point. My point is there is so much opportunity to do everything that you want to do. And I know that sounds like a cheerleader, but I am in like the Gary V camp where, I mean, he's like, all right, what are you doing from 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night? Right? You're watching Netflix, but you live alone, or you're playing video games, right? I'm not a gamer, but I understand that's a thing. All right, cool. But there's time. There's time you could be researching and maybe doing outreach to somebody like yourself and sending an email to introduce yourself you're humble place.
Yes.
And be willing to work.
Be willing to work.
Don't think he's gonna take you on, or he's gonna take you on under his wing, and he's gonna split his commission with you because you came on some ride-alongs. No. Carry my wires.
That's right. Carry my wire. I love that.
Not like an asshole.
No. But you're speaking facts.
That's how this amazing human got to where he is. I'm sorry. I'm not taking all the credit. But I will take some of that credit where he showed up. he did what he had to do. And I'm also not an a-hole, but yeah, I hope not.
Nah.
Maybe back then.
Yeah.
We'll talk offline. But, he was willing to put in the work, and where he is today. Not just in realty, but where he was with DJing. He's still DJing as well with another partner. Put in the work, show up,
and he's a
attitude.
And he's a phenomenal agent. Me and him, we have done things together that I haven't done in years. Aside from us being good friends from a long time ago, being able to collaborate with him in the industry field, and our minds just click, and the energy is just flow, and ideas just come fast, really quick. And
that's chemistry too.
That's chemistry, but that's how you're around. Like, to your point too, you're around a good circle. You're around people who want to help, because I want him to succeed, me to succeed, vice versa. And that's where I find more success and opportunities just come. And it's not sitting on your fucking ass all day on a couch at 2 p.m. and just complaining about, oh, the world's fallen on me, and you have done nothing about it. You literally have done nothing about it. Laziness, and that's to your point. I loved what you said, because I'm the same way. Laziness scares me. If it's 2:00 on a Thursday and I'm feeling tired, and I could easily go take a nap or whatever, I'm out. I got to go to the office and do something. And it's just scary.
I appreciate your point. And as I've gone on, I've also understood that sometimes that's okay.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to give yourself a pass. Now, it's hard for me to do it. It's hard for me to do it. But like I said, I did it this week. It felt great. Yeah. And it does recharge.
Taking time for yourself.
Absolutely. Which I don't do enough of. I do my best to take care of the home. I take care of our cats, and make my wife breakfast. I make us dinner. In between, I'm also trying to work.
And not feeling guilty when you're not working. It's
it's hard. Right? It's hard for me. Even today, I'm actually getting better at it at this stage of my life. I'm trying to.
Me too.
Trying to.
Me too.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. So, like I said, I appreciate so much great wisdom, and a lot of us all relate, because again, it's just the foundation. It's also culture, but it's just who we are, right? It's our upbringing. I mean, what's next? I mean, this is one of the things I love is, like, as you're telling your story, because I know some of it, you took on so many opportunities that, like you said, the bar game. But look, how did you you discover you had a voice, and that voice turned into, you started building out this voiceover business, and now that's what you're doing. So all these little things in your life, you're constantly rewriting your story, which I love that. And that's the beauty. Why I even thought about doing this. We thought about doing this podcast is I want people to realize you got to take action to be able to find your next step.
Yeah.
I think, again, the DJing career, I thought it was just DJing, but look what it's amounted to. It's production. Everything I do now is I have a mindset. And then it transferred to sales, because I was learning how to talk to people when I was at these events. And I used to be shy. I used to hate going out there in the crowd. But now I'm confident. And that's what I'm trying to say with this show is you're constantly writing, and being that, I mean, you've done so much. You've gotten to this point in your life. Like, what's next for you at your stage?
He's like, I think to be honest, I'm living what's next.
That's it.
I'm in the what's next for me. I'm in the what's next. I shared that I gave up my former life, former self, by choice. And that's only been 1.5 years. And that's allowed me to, dedicate myself, quote unquote, full time to this stage of my life. This stage of my life, I am still working really hard, but I'm also appreciating getting the opportunity to not do that. And what I mean by that is I am still so committed to what I do. I take coaching. I'm a forever learner. So I still take coaching. I take workshops. I'm always learning. And that's how I got here. And that's how I continue to evolve and stay sharp and get better. And I take really big swings, so to speak, at some of the work I put myself up for. You have to have a really thick skin. It's almost like being an actor. You get turned down a lot.
Criticism.
You don't even get criticism, actually. You just don't get a response.
That's life.
At the beginning, you're like, don't you love me?
Yeah, it's a cricket.
Yeah, there's nothing there. But anyway, my point is, this is what's next. And that is essentially having work that is fulfilling. Sometimes I wear pants. Sometimes I don't. I don't leave the house.
God bless.
No, I wear sweatpants all the time. I had to dress up today. I put on jeans. And I also, amazingly, have weekends that are a little bit more open. Sure. You know, I haven't had a free weekend, generally speaking, not 100%.
30 years,
forever in my adult life.
So used to it already. Yeah.
You know, yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a goal for me, but it's a really nice benefit.
Oh, yeah.
It's also nice to, you know, be able to schedule out my time differently. You know, I'm not always, unless I have a recording session that's in the calendar, which does happen, and you're at the whim, or not whim, you're at the mercy of the production studio. You're doing remote recording over the internet. That's how we do it now. But for the most part, I create my schedule. So getting back to the Netflix thing, be really easy for me to to not do anything.
Veg out and do nothing.
Not do anything all day unless there's a call. Well, you know what? There's never going to be a call if you don't work
go out and look for it
to actively pursue it. So anyway, not to get off topic, the flexibility, the ability to breathe, the ability at this stage of my life to sit on our patio for a little bit. Yeah. Especially on a Saturday afternoon.
It's the little things. It's the little things.
Yeah, they're little things, but they're huge.
They're big things. Yeah.
Normal. I call them normal people. Yeah. People who don't have our, or in my case, had our lifestyle. You take that for granted. Oh, thank God, it's Friday. F you, man. It's Friday. That's my Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Hence the shirt.
Look at that.
Right? My real Monday.
We say that all the time.
Or my real Saturday was on Monday.
Yeah, that's right.
Right when the weekend was over. Oh, thank God! Please, nobody bother me.
That's right. Yeah.
But now I have a very different luxury. So I'm at a very different stage in my life. You know, I've been at this for a long time.
And growing out the business too, right?
And growing out the business, it gives me a lot of opportunity. You know, I don't have to take client phone calls throughout the week. The week is mine. So, awesome. So today, you know, I sit and I'm relatively disciplined. I kind of parse out the following couple of days or week on a Sunday or Monday morning. So I see what my week looks like. Is there anything scheduled? Cool. Work around that. There's nothing scheduled. So imagine that, because not everybody's built for this shit. Imagine there's nothing on your calendar. What are you going to do?
That's right.
What are you going to do? You going to look for work? You work on social media? You do some marketing emails? Cool. You're going to fix that crap that is a mess in your booth? Cool. Whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Fill up those empty spaces.
Because they're honestly not empty. Take a look at your to-do list. There's a lot of shit to do. A lot. And that's my mentality. I'm not well. So I take that to an extreme. So I am trying to compensate for that. I'm trying to compensate for that. So when you hear me say that, I scheduled a personal day in 2 weeks because I'm pretty sure I can take, you know, half that day and go for a motorcycle ride and just enjoy, and then grill in the evening for my wife and I when she gets off of work, you know, something like that. You know, that's a blessing for me at this stage of my life. And I'm trying really hard to be mindful and really take that into account.
God bless you, man. You are an amazing person, definitely.
Where can people find you online if they want to connect with you and learn more about your business? Get voiceover. By the way, our introduction was produced and made by Tony, by the way. Great job.
I wanted to do that live so bad.
I'll make the factory sound.
It was awesome.
That was amazing. Where can people connect with you?
I love doing that. So thanks for setting that up. So I do have drophouse.com. Drophouse is still my production site. It is in disrepair in terms of being relevant or being updated, I should say. So that's something I'm working on. Put it on the list, right? But there's a lot of I do podcast production, audio production. I do IVR, which is phone messaging and stuff like that. So a lot of that is still on Drophouse. Drops I still do for DJs as well and nightlife. I do Voice of God stuff, which is really cool, which is like award shows.
I want to hear it.
It's so fun. Yeah. So I just did one for this big award show. I forget where, Chicago maybe, I don't recall. That was fun. So a lot of that work is on there, but honestly, I just put everything on TonyTeeNeto.com. That is primarily my voiceover site. That is primarily where you're going to find like all my demos, all my fun projects. There's some self-deprecating stuff on there that I love to do, like outtakes and, we get it all in one take. And 20 takes later, I'm still trying to say 3 words, that's my world. But TonyTeeNeto.com is really my home.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gotta check them out.
Send me an email. And Instagram. I like Instagram a lot.
Oh yeah, you have great content on there.
Thank you. Yeah. At Tony Tee Neto. Tony Tee Neto.
Yeah. It's amazing. Anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to say, again, It was great having you. Learned a lot from you.
Thank
you. The way you were able to pivot over so many different times in your life is truly inspiring. Hopefully anybody listening to this,
I hope so,
will be inspired by it too.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up episode number 3. Thank you so much for checking in. If you haven't checked us out online at Read Write the Legacy Podcast, we are all over the place, streaming everywhere live, and we really appreciate you, Tony, coming out. Tell your stories. Amazing.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And once again, guys, thanks for checking in episode number 3.
Thank you.
Real stories, real strategies, real impact. This has been Rewrite the Legacy with Chris and Antonio, available on all podcast platforms. Follow on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify at Rewrite the Legacy Podcast.